So in the previous demos, we looked a lot at Active Directory domain services, which we traditionally set up on a Windows VM, essentially in an IaaS configuration. But what if you need the features of legacy type domain services, but don't really want the effort of managing a domain controller? Well, to some extent, Azure has a feature called Azure Active Directory Domain Services that includes probably about 80 to 90% of the features that you'll probably need from the legacy AD domain services options. And this is essentially that managed service that Azure provides for you. So instead of us having the VMs that we had to provision and build the domain and then sync those users up, we're going to do something slightly in reverse here. We're going to take our Azure Active Directory and create Azure Active Directory domain services from that. So to begin with, let's head over to the portal and take a look around. And in the portal, the very first thing we need to look at are our networks. So if I go into virtual networks, you'll see I've just got one VNet. But if I go into that VNet, you'll see there's a default subnet. If I go down to subnets, and I've got the default subnet, and then you can see I've already created one for domain services. So I've got a 10.0.4.0/24 for all of my VMs I'm using for this demo, and then for domain services, 10.0.5.0/24. And that's because it is recommended that you put Azure AD domain services in its own subnet. This is all going to be managed all directly from Azure, so they like it to be there. So to get started, I've got a VM that's just built. So if we go to virtual machines, you'll see we have generic VM01, which is the VM we will join to the domain once we provision Azure AD domain services. But to get Azure AD domain services up, I simply select create a resource, and it will type in Azure AD. We can see Azure AD domain services are there. Let's go ahead and select create. And we're going to use an existing resource group, which we have for identity, and put that in Central US, and go ahead and click OK. Select our network. So we've only got the one network, and then we will select that domain services subnet that I've already created. Click OK. Administrative group. So if we select this, you can see this is the AADDS administrators group, and they will have privileges to manage this domain. So if I click this one, you can see I've got myself in there right now. I'm going to be the member that has the domain admin rights to the domain. So we'll click OK on that, but I could add additional members if I wanted to. But with that, that's everything I need to type in, and I can go ahead and click OK, and it will go ahead and start provisioning that managed domain services environment for me. And I'll fast forward here while that completes. Okay, and after 20 minutes or so that's completed, that domain is provisioned. The last step you do need to complete is grab these DNS servers. So I've got 10.0.5.4 and 5.5, and we just need to go over to our virtual network and update those DNS servers. So I can click configure DNS servers, go into custom, and go ahead and put the first DNS server in there, put the second one in, and click save. And that's now saving and updating the network. So DNS for those networks will point to these domain controllers. And that's it for setting up AD domain services. The last thing we need to do is simply go over to a virtual machine and join it to the domain.